My name is Victor and I'm a content creator here on YouTube. Over the course of the last 6 months, I've been using the Samsung A54 5G, and in this video, I'm really hoping to open your eyes on the experience from an Apple fanboy or just in general an Apple user switching over to Samsung, different UI, different interface. We're looking at different softwares and different applications. I've been trying to push the phone all the way to its limit, battery life, cameras, and all of that stuff. In this video, if you stick around, I'll tell you my opinion, and this is what I think. So it's been 6 months with the Samsung A54 5G. I've been using this phone pretty much as I possibly could. If it was not every day, then it was every other day. You know, there were some days where I wasn't really on my phone. There were some days where I was more on the phone, using it extensively. And this video is really just kind of like a portfolio, kind of like a document on the overall realistic experience with the A54 5G. You know, because I could sit here and talk about, oh, well, it's great, it has fantastic cameras, or it has really performing cameras for the price range, or, you know, oh, it's good, has good battery life when you get it out of the box. Sure, when you get the phone out of the box, initially, pretty much any phone is good. It's performant, it's decent. You know, obviously you have the flagship phones like the S23 Ultra or the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and these phones, you know, they're up there. They're like right here, but this one kind of sits in the middle. The price point for this phone is usually kind of gravitating between $450 and $600 depending on your area, on your region. Now for the last 6 months, I really wanted to push the phone as much as I possibly could, and in this video I really want to point out all the little things that kind of hold up well, some of the things that didn't hold up so well over time. You know, we're going to get into the battery life and how that's been kind of like performing and how it's been acting throughout the last couple of months. I also want to talk about, you know, the cameras in general, and there's a couple of other performance aspects that I want to get into, and some of the software and UI things that are part of the interface on the Samsung. Now, first things first, I want to touch up on the overall transition and the switch from an iPhone to a Samsung, or just in general from an Apple device to a Samsung. This isn't necessarily my first time switching from one side to the other. I am pretty much, I don't know if I would brand myself as an Apple fanboy, or I don't even know if I would brand myself as an Apple just techie or whatever, but for the most part, I do have mainly Apple devices. It's just kind of what I grew up with. You know, when I was younger, my dad used to buy me Apple devices whenever he did, and on the rare occasions that I had the opportunity to get a device, I would also stick to Apple. It's just kind of what I grew up with. Just kind of has that touch of familiarity for me, and it's easy to operate, so this is why I've been kind of sticking with Apple. But by all means, now being in this tech space and being able to review and do all of these videos, it's really opened, first of all, my own eyes on Samsung and just overall these products. And I really do have to admit that this transition wasn't necessarily hard, but it wasn't necessarily easy as well. You know, there's a couple of things like when you switch over, there's, you know, a different interface. You're going to go from the blue bubbles to the green bubbles, especially here in North America. But that doesn't necessarily change how the phone works, and it doesn't necessarily change your experience. It's a minor tweak, it's a difference and not necessarily a change. It has been something that has been very refreshing for me. I love the interface on Samsung. It is different, and it's kind of similar to Apple in a sense where both of them are relatively minimalist. They're very simplistic in their way. Obviously, that's probably the best way to go about it, because you don't want to have something that's super cluttered, super messy all over the place. But I definitely do have to admit that the interface and the freedom that you have on Samsung is refreshing. It's something different from Apple, and that's something that I always have loved about Samsung devices specifically. Now, obviously on the A54, this is just a phone I've picked up and I've been deciding to use, but you're gonna get the same experience with any other Android phone, whether it's a Pixel 8 or, you know, just another phone. So maybe you're looking at a Motorola or whatever the case may be, you're gonna get that same Android experience, which is different yet exciting when you're switching over from an iPhone. Now, being able to customize the home screen, the lock screen, and pretty much everything here and there, you know, just being able to move, the simple fact of being able to move an application or just a simple icon on the screen, wherever on the screen. So not having that limitation of being able to follow kind of like a grid like Apple has, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but given that you have this extra freedom on the Samsung, it adds value to experience. It added value to my experience, and this is something that I really liked over the course of the last 6 months. I've been able to just kind of personalize my screen, add widgets here and there, just make it fun, make it creative, make it different. And that's been something that has been a huge plus, a huge emphasis on this transition, due to the fact that I'm a creative person. I love being able to just kind of like customize pretty much everything here and there, you know, on my computer, on all of my devices. I've been always trying to customize everything from the wallpaper, icons, and all of that stuff. So Samsung gives you that freedom that I absolutely love, and I am a big fan and I support this. Will always preach the creativity and the diversity that Samsung is able to give you with their interface. Now switching over a little bit more on the technical side of the phone. So the one thing that I have noticed with the A54 5G over the past couple of months is something that has not really surprised me, but then again, I was kind of hoping for a little more, and that's the battery life. It has been holding up well. When I got it out of the box initially, it was holding up really well. You know, it was good. Whenever you wouldn't use the phone, I wasn't really draining any battery, and you know, on a regular usage, so from like, you know, start of the day in the morning all the way throughout the day and all the way at the end of the day, so at night, it would hold up pretty well. Sometimes I wouldn't even need to charge the phone up until the next day. But a couple months down the line, I really noticed that I started losing battery a little faster. Now, naturally, the battery health of overall in the phone starts to drain and dies, and that's not necessarily a Samsung issue. That's just an overall battery issue across smartphones in general. So you will find that with Apple devices, you'll find that with Android devices regardless. That's not the issue, but I do have to say that my expectations were slightly higher for the A54. I'm not saying it's a bad overall. The battery health has been holding up relatively okay. I just wished it did a little bit of a better job, especially since 6 months down the line. A lot of people, they're looking when they buy a phone, they want to keep it for at least 2 to 3 years. And after 6 months, if you're starting to already see kind of like a decrease, it's a little unfortunate. It's a little annoying, especially when I've been using things like whenever I've been playing games. I find myself playing a couple more mobile games recently. So I've been playing PUBG and, you know, some other games. I've also been playing this one called Shadow Fight. Regardless, the point is when I've been playing games on the phone, that's when I really started to notice a battery drop. It's been decreasing and it's been kind of just been significant and consistent also. So the battery drop has been consistent over the last couple of weeks or the last couple of months, rather, should I say. But overall, it's not too bad. USB-C does provide some fast charging, so that's something that's really nice, and I definitely love Android for that. They've been having USB-C for a while now. It's gonna stay. You know, people who love Apple devices, they're still gonna buy Apple devices. A lot of people will have a hard time transitioning. This is why I kind of wanted to do this video. Maybe you've been thinking about transitioning from Apple to Samsung, or maybe you've been thinking about it, you wanted to give a Samsung a go. This video might enlighten you on it, and I just want to say that you can get a really pleasant experience with a Samsung phone, even if you don't get the flagship phone, and that's something that Apple hasn't really necessarily been able to do. Sure, you have the iPhone 15 Pro, then you have the regular iPhone 15, and then you'll find yourself having the iPhone SE. On the other hand, Samsung has a phone pretty much for every single person in between. You have the flagship phone, which is the S23 Ultra, the S23 Plus, S23. Then you have phones like the A54 5G, which is kind of like the mid-entry level. Then you have phones like the A34, which is a little bit underneath this one. Then you have phones like the A13. So you kind of have a phone with every price bracket, a phone for every single budget, a phone for every single person and every kind of consumer. And that's something that, you know, it's very easy to go unnoticed, but it's something that adds so much value. And overall, if you look across the globe and you look at consumers worldwide, it's some people don't even need all the features from a Samsung. You don't need to spend $1,200, $1,400 on a phone. Maybe you just need the regular features, you know, just a simple basic experience. You want to use the phone to call, use WhatsApp to text a couple of people, and maybe, you know, the casual music listening, Bluetooth services, and then, for example, you want to, you know, casually look on social media and YouTube, and that's pretty much all you need. Something like the A54 5G will do that with a breeze. It'll handle it really well, and that kind of leads me into performance. The phone has been holding up. This has been something that's been consistent for the past 6 months. The performance has been very solid. You know, you can game, despite gaming draining the battery, it is performance. So you will be able to play kind of like really nice games on the phone and just never really experience a lag, never really experience some buffing or kind of just like stuttering on the actual gameplay. But it's been really great. It's been holding up. You know, everything else that has to do with like media consumption, scrolling on social media, just going through Gmail, going through the basic applications, kind of just like scrolling on Pinterest. You know, these are applications that are just very light. They don't necessarily require a lot of GPU power or a lot of CPU. And this specific A54 has been holding up really, really well, and that, I have to say, it's been super consistent for the last 6 months. Now, something that's been very pleasant for me has been pretty much the camera setup. You know, it's been kind of performant. Now there is some things that I've noticed here and there. Now naturally, when you open the camera and you take a look at the preview of what you're about to take, so the picture you're about to take, that initial preview is kind of really low res, and to a certain extent it would actually, some people might consider it below 720p. Now this is something that I noticed, and it was kind of concerning at first. I was wondering to myself, why is it so low quality? Why is it so low res? And that's just because of how the software and the camera UI interacts with the phone. Now naturally, when you take a picture and then you look at it in your gallery, it looks completely different. And I think that's something that you have to get used to when you're using the phone. That's something that took a little bit of time for me to get used to, because I'll take a picture, it'll look kind of like low quality, low res, a little pixely, and then I open gallery and I look at it again and it's fully loaded, fully rendered, and now the picture looks proper. It looks in high quality. It has nice amount of contrast and sharpness to it. So that's something that you have to get used to if you're not familiar with that. You know, on Apple, the preview, what you see is what you get. On Samsung, it's a little different. Now, it's not necessarily the case with other phones. For example, if you're looking at the S23 Ultra, you won't necessarily run into those issues. But with the A54, that's something that I've pointed out, and I think it was worth mentioning in the video. So if ever you do end up picking this phone because of this video, because if you've been thinking about picking the A54 5G, please keep that in mind. I don't want you to think that the camera is bad. It's just the UI and the interface, how it interacts with the camera itself. Now, last but not least, there's also a very huge opportunity for you guys when you're picking up a Samsung. There's a lot of little applications, a lot of little tweaks and widgets that you can go ahead and download. You can download it, like, I know for example on the Samsung S23 Ultra, since it has a really performant lineup of cameras, you can download a camera raw application that enables you to take the highest quality pictures that you possibly can with the phone. So it enables some features into the camera that allows you to take raw pictures in a higher definition than the preset or just the overall default on a Samsung, and I think you can do so on the A54 5G. Now, don't expect the same results because the cameras on this one are less performant than the S23 Ultra, but that's just something that in comparison to like an Apple consumer or an Apple device, you don't really have these type of features. You do have applications that enhance your experience on Apple, but Samsung has always been a step ahead. They've always kind of had the leap when it comes to that specific range, that specific niche. And there's so many other applications that I have yet to discover on the Play Store or just overall for Samsung. And you know, the possibilities are relatively infinite. And I think this is something that you should consider whether you were switching from, for example, for an Apple, or if you were just considering getting a Samsung device in general. The possibilities and the options are kind of infinite, and I think this is the beauty about Samsung and Android devices in general. You can kind of personalize the phone however you want it. You want to make it colorful, you want to make it simple, you want to make it flashy, you want to make it minimalist. You can do all of that. I'm not saying you can with Apple, but Samsung you can, and then some. And I think that's really the nuance and the difference. And I have to admit, over the last 6 months, I understand more and more the love that people have for Samsung and just in general Android devices. It really is nice. You know, once you start using the Samsung device, at first it can be a little confusing, kind of just, you know, learning the UI, learning the interface and being like, okay, this is different, this works like this doesn't work the same as Apple. But once you get the hang of it, once you start understanding how the nature of the interface on Samsung is, that's when you really start to maximize the features and all of the possibilities that the Samsung has. And that pretty much kind of wraps it up and that pretty much was, and ultimately that's what made my experience with the Samsung amazing. It's been really fun ever since, and I'm actually really looking forward to the next series of phone that Samsung will drop. I think there might be an A55 releasing somewhere in the beginning of next year, and definitely stick around because soon we'll be getting information and also a release date for the S24 and S24 Ultra, which I am beyond excited. The S23 Plus it's probably like my favorite Android smartphone of last year or of this year at the time of you watching this video. So make sure you stick around. I'm going to be covering those whenever they come out. Now, ultimately, in the end, I do want to say that the switch from iPhone to Samsung has been a very pleasant experience. It's been really fun. Now, for the last couple of months in the process of switching from an Apple device to a Samsung, I've been also thinking, what if I switched from my MacBook to a Samsung laptop? And I think I might be doing that. I know Samsung has dropped their S3 Book Ultra. I'm not entirely sure, I may have butchered that name, but I know they dropped a new laptop. Let me know if you would like to see that on the channel. I'll definitely start working on that. And I know I've been MIA for a little bit, but I'm back in action. More videos on the way. Let me know what you think of this video. Has this review helped you in any shape or form? Will you be picking up a Samsung or the A54 5G? With that being said, this has been your boy. I am signing out. I wish you the best of luck in everything you do, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Deuces.